Ooh, y'all. I'm gonna bring some deep vulnerability right now, because that's just something that I've really been sitting with recently. Just like the ways in which I've been really guarded in my life, and I've been at the precipice of like really recommitting myself and like taking a leap back into the endeavors that my heart wants to do, namely like my podcast and working on my music. So I have recently come back to seriously pursuing music as a career. I took like a 5-year break, and that, and also I started to get towards the end of my tantric sex, love, and relationship coaches training program that I've been in for the last year, where you start to like build your business, and it's just been bringing up a lot for me around who I am, who I really want to be. My dog just came in, all the animals. I was like, who's opening the door? Hey Hercules, what's up, buddy? You wanna come here? You wanna come? This is my dog, Hercules. And my cat Ostara was in the frame earlier. It's just been bringing up a lot of questions for me about like what's really aligned. Like I've been really struggling to do anything that doesn't feel authentic and aligned, and I've been feeling really lost about what does feel authentic and aligned, because so many of the examples that I see other people doing just like don't feel true for me. And there's also this element that I've been really reflecting on recently, which is like my own wounding around like how I want to be seen, and a lot of guardedness and like perfectionism in the way that I present myself to the world. And luckily some of these things have been making themselves known to me and like starting to deconstruct themselves. And I was having a conversation with my coach like a couple of days ago, where she kind of pointed out to me a moment where she felt like I had kind of pulled back and like guarded my vulnerability. And it just really highlighted for me like how much I noticed that I care about people perceiving me as being strong. And so a lot of fears around how people perceive me and like perfectionism and stuff have been coming up when I'm looking at trying to record my podcast. And I've been like working through that, and I've recorded 2 episodes, and they've been really like sort of beautifully calling me into like presence and truth and alignment with myself, because one thing I am really not able to do is like be misaligned with myself and like be inauthentic. I might have been a little bit guarded, but I would never be like people pleasing or inauthentic or do something just because it was supposed to be popular or something. Could never really bring myself to do that. And so the act of filming the podcasts, see if I can pull this curtain a little so it's not, the sun's not like right on my face. The act of recording the podcast has been kind of calling me into these like more present states where I just feel like I'm being like a weirdo. Like I feel like I'm just like being so bizarre, and I'm afraid people are gonna think I'm like so weird. So that's been kind of a journey of like, what does it really look like for me to show up fully authentically without regard for like whether it's gonna make sense to other people or like how they're gonna perceive it. And what was just coming up for me like a few moments ago, which inspired me to record this, is coming back to my singing work after all this time is bringing up a lot of memories from all the many years that I pursued classical music. And a lot of them are like really hard. Like a lot of them have to do with me really struggling to feel like I belong, or struggling to feel like I really get along with people in my professional environment. And also a lot of like, I was looking at a chamber group that I admire, and I was reading about the guy who started it, and he was putting together musicians that he really admired to like create music that they really believe in, and it really resonated with that goal. And I feel like I've made attempts in the past to lead projects. This is just like, this is like real vulnerable to try to communicate, but I've made efforts to like lead projects before, and oftentimes there's been like major social conflict in those environments, and I've really struggled to like collaborate with other people in a way that was really, really amiable and empowering for everyone involved. And I think that, so I was just sitting with a lot of like shame that was coming up around like different experiences that I've had, struggling to feel like I belonged, and also struggling to feel connected to the sense of being good enough, you know? Sometimes I look at people who are succeeding professionally, and I'm like, well, that person, in order to like be in this environment, that person had to really like believe that they were good enough to be there. And I think I've really like juggled this simultaneous sense of like really believing in myself and my capacity, but then not really committing to the pursuit of that and expressing that. And I think a really big part of that has to do with like just a really deep-seated fear of not being enough. And a lot of that kind of conflict and challenge that I've experienced in my collaborations or in my social relationships with people in the different environments that I've been in has come again also from this just deep-seated feeling, like fear of not being enough, and then putting up all of these guards and facades. And my boyfriend said something really beautiful to me the other day. I was like crying to him after I got out of my session with my coach, who was like kind of made me realize how guarded I was being. And he was just like, you know, when you are authentically yourself, your strength is just noticeable. Like you don't have to try to convey that. And it really made me realize how much I felt like I needed to prove myself all of the time. And it's a really painful thing to think back on how much energy I've spent trying to demonstrate my own power and feel really alienated from and like disconnected from other people, and not really feel like truly unguarded and open-hearted. And like a lot of people are guarded, so it's not a unique to me experience, although how I go about it might be different than some people. And I've really been working on, like, as I've been practicing vulnerability and unguardedness, not everyone is able to meet that. And I've really been practicing a lot of compassion for people who aren't able to meet that. But I've also been practicing a lot of self-responsibility for my own energy. And I was just telling my boyfriend that, like, one of the most painful things about starting to feel all of the guarding and all of the facades and all of the armor that I have been wearing is to look back at everything that has ever transpired and take radical self-responsibility for all of the experiences that I've had, and like not blame anyone but myself for any of those dynamics. obviously people are accountable and they're responsible for their own behavior, but I can now see and feel what I was bringing every time I felt a lack of a sense of belonging or a conflict or alienation, or like feeling like an outcast is like a big narrative that I've had. And sort of like superior outcast is kind of a term that I've used in like different communities where we've been talking about our like wounds and our kind of like ways that we deal with them. Is like sometimes it's not that I'm like, it's interesting how knowing in your heart that you are amazing and good enough, right, which everyone is, and then also simultaneously feeling really alienated and outcast and worried that you're not good enough, creates this like weird distorted identity where it's like almost like a superiority complex where you're like trying to hold on to your confidence but also don't understand how to do it from a place of like connection. And so it becomes this kind of like arrogance that justifies feeling disconnected, where it's just like, oh, well, people just don't understand me, or they just don't get it, or, you know, this kind of like, and so that feeling of outcastness was also like accompanied by a feeling of just like, not feelings of like, oh, I'm not good enough, but just like, oh, they don't get me, you know, people can't understand me, they just don't, you know. And yeah, I feel this like doorway opening up into a way of being that's like, I can hold myself to the standard that I know that I am capable of, and I'm really, really excited to apply myself to my music with a healthy relationship to my capacity and to work really hard. And I'm also really grateful to be opening my heart and unguarding myself, because I can feel how it will impact my ability to communicate emotion and humanity. And I'm also really, really excited to like shed these layers of feeling alienated from and disconnected from other people and feeling like I can't belong, and then kind of like justifying that with some kind of arrogant narrative, you know. Yeah, it's a heavy burden to take full responsibility for everything that has transpired, and to see the walls that you've been living behind for your whole entire life. And I also just can feel the beauty of like what's on the other side of that, and I'm so excited. Like I literally just went and like cried in my boyfriend's arms so hard, but at the same time I could feel the tenderness and the connection and the beauty that was available to me on the other side of like seeing and healing these barriers. And so I wanted to show up here to this little experiment I've been doing of these kind of like off the cuff little YouTube videos with that full transparency and vulnerability, because I think that that's really what I'm trying to find in all of my work, like in my music and also with my podcast and things. Like I feel called to do these things, but it has really, really made me look at all of the feelings and barriers and guards that I have around showing myself and how other people will perceive me. And there's this like air of authority that I feel like have felt historically, I think, pressured to convey, and I don't want to do that in that way, right? Like I really want to continue to challenge myself to expose the truth of my process and the truth of my experience, and just trust that there are other people that need to hear that and can relate to that. And so I just wanted to share that I'm like on this path where I feel like I'm facing a lot of my own armor and the pain of like the impact that it's had in my life, and really using this space to deconstruct that armor. Sorry about my phone, guys. And yeah, and I'm really excited to share more music stuff with you guys, because I really am excited to see how deconstructing all of that armor is going to deepen my relationship to being able to share music and really like translate and channel the human experience through that medium, and really celebrate the beauty of art in that way. So thank you for watching, listening, and yeah, I'm just gonna keep trying to show up with as much truth and vulnerability as I possibly can figure out and muster and understand. And this is just one step on that path. So, till next time.